So I'm really excited to be here today with David Baines. We're at the Assistive Technology Conference here in Orlando. Thank you so much for stopping in.
It's fun. Good to see you.
And tell us a bit more about you and your background.
Yeah, so I've worked in assistive technology for the best part of 40 years now. So I started out as a teacher. I trained in special education and was interested then in working with things like the BBCB microcomputer. So we're going back a while.
Yeah.
Everything was loaded from tape long before floppy disks. So I worked as a teacher, working as a special needs coordinator, worked for the National Curriculum Council, and IT was a big part of that. And then after I'd had a headship at a school for children with cerebral palsy, I left and joined a UK NGO that just focused on access to technology for people with disabilities. And then as you do, moving around, you start to think, so I was asked to go to Qatar for 4 days to look at a new AT centre they wanted to set up in the country. And I stayed for 7 years, which was exciting and great fun. And we set up MADA as the Assistive Technology Centre for Arabic Assistive Technologies. Then when I came back, I've been working freelance as a consultant. I've been very lucky working with UNICEF, with WHO, as well as with different countries around the world. Different aid agencies and so on.
And MADA is a landmark in the Middle East, would you say, for assistive technology?
I think it was at the time, yeah. I think it was probably the first major assistive technology centre in the Middle East. And one of the things we were able to do was by focusing on the needs of people within Qatar, we developed a whole range of technologies that could be implemented for Arabic speakers right across the world. I think my favourite one was getting an email from Kentucky. And an email saying, we've been using your Arabic version of Clicker 5 as it was then. I was saying, but you're in Kentucky? He said, yeah, we have refugees housed in Kentucky. We've got that product. We use Clicker 5, now we have an Arabic version, and those kids can be fully involved in the classroom. So yeah, it's been some exciting things.
Disability in the Middle East has totally transformed in the last few years too, hasn't it? So you've been there at the right time and the right place to achieve that.
Yeah, I think disability is quite high on the agenda in the Middle East now. Being fortunate enough to work in places like Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, as well as visiting places like Jordan and Tunisia and Egypt as well. And yeah, there is definitely an understanding that as the population ages, the inclusion of people with disabilities, both into college, into university and into the workforce, is definitely a priority in countries there. You see that.
Brilliant. What brings you to ATiA this year, and how many years have you been coming to this conference?
That's a great question. I think it's 8 years. It could be 9 years that I've been coming here. For me, ATiA remains one of the best pan-disability, pan-technology conferences in the world. It's practitioner-led, it's led by people who are actually doing things and using the technology in real life, in classrooms or in employment. And it's quite unique in its ability not to put too strong an academic gloss on presentations, but actually to focus on what people are actually doing. And it's a wonderful opportunity to network with people from right across the world. Fun enough, I was talking to somebody last night and they said they meet more of their colleagues from Europe here in Orlando than they will at any other event in Europe. So yeah, it's an important venue.
Why do you think AT is important?
I think for me, AT is important, and digital AT is important, really because we begin to remove significant barriers to what people want to achieve. Achieving aspirations, I think, is a really valid target for us. And as I get older, I realise that many of the ATs that I've recommended over the years are now ones that I need. So whether that's in terms of font sizes on screen, or more regularly having captions on for just about every TV programme that's available, all of these are things that those ATs are important, but they improve the quality of your life. And that, I think, is the critical thing. It's not really the technology, it's the impact on quality of life that these technologies have.
It's put you in good stead, hasn't it? Learning all about AT your life. As you say, as we get older, we need more and more assistive tech. We need to educate more people out there, don't we, to have the knowledge of assistive technology. Yeah, for some time in their life.
Two really big things. Awareness is absolutely critical. making people aware of all the different things that are possible, both in terms of specialized, dedicated assistive technology, but also the features and functions that are being built into the technologies that surround us all the time. But I think as well as awareness, and we need to encourage some creativity in use. I find that some of the most important and most interesting things that people do is when they take the technology and apply it imaginatively. So if you take something like Amazon Alexa, seeing how some parents are using that to set up room settings for when somebody with autism is struggling and stressed. And it's the parents who are thinking, okay, I can put commands in that change the environment like that. That wasn't anything anybody suggested you use the technology.
Give us an example of how how that child can change their environment by commanding Alexa.
So the way with Alexa, I remember talking to a parent about it, and what she had done, she'd given Alexa a command through, and it was basically the command was something along the lines of, Alexa, it's David's mad half hour, something along the lines of what she said. And what it was is when she said that to Alexa, it changed. It was really because her son would become very stressed and quite anxious and would start to rock and so on. So when this was happening, she would say this and it would change the lighting in the room, in all the rooms, to a soft pink. It would turn off television and any loud noises, and it would turn on gentle music that he liked. So she put together a string of actions linked to a single command that then allowed her just to sit and comfort him until he was ready to cope. But it meant that she didn't have to run around the house making all those changes. She could make those change in one statement and set the room to the state which actually suited him to bring him out of the problem he was in.
What excites you about the future of ATiA?
I think what really excites me is what we're seeing happen is this shift from dedicated devices to accessible consumer technology and applying that consumer technology in new ways. Now, that has huge benefits. It's how we're going to bridge the gap in terms of the many people who lack assistive technology. It's low cost, it supports self-determination and people choosing their assistive technology for themselves. So I get really excited at seeing some of these features and functions that 20 years ago were a dedicated aid now being integrated and built in to the phones and the tablets that most of us carry around every day.
Just a side note, I'd heard that Alexa was actually developed for people with disabilities originally to help them order on Amazon, and then it became a mainstream product for everyone to use. And that's quite like assistive technology generally, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, things move in and out of being specialised and non-specialised. I think that focus. I don't know the background to the design of Alexa, but we do know that smart assistants was certainly seen as something for the wide population. That we needed to find ways of using natural interfaces, and that natural interface is really quite important to us. Whether we can use our voice or gesture, our eyes, controlling technologies without needing complex things as intermediaries. I think is also very powerful and expands ease of use of technology for a lot of people.
How have you seen ATiA evolve over the last 20 years, 40 years?
I think the pivotal moment for me was probably the release of the iPhone 3G. I think that was the first time we really saw this idea of moving away from computers to mobile devices. And it was immediately clear that with the dynamic screen, the gestures, that there was a lot that could be done using that as a platform. So for me, that pivotal moment was a huge one when we first saw those happen. There've been other types of devices before, but they never had the same traction as impact as that first iPhone 3G had. So I think that was unbelievably important. I think, of course, the other massive things that we saw before that was the growth of the internet. I can remember I spoke at a conference in 1994, I think it was, and we said the internet was going to change the lives of people with disabilities. And almost literally, the audience laughed us off the stage, because at that time, the internet was this slow thing that you might take a minute to download a photo or to get a little piece of information. So we had that as critical. Then we had the move to mobile and portable But the next one is without doubt artificial intelligence. The way in which we're seeing that AI being able to create new forms of access. We've got those 3 generations of change there.
Tell us how AI is going to change our world in the next 20 years.
It already is.
David.
I mean, it's already changing our lives. I mean, ranging from when you switch on your Netflix account, AI is saying, well, we know the sort of things that you like to watch, and here's some more like those. So AI is doing that matching process for us. AI and the sensors in the Internet of Things, already in that idea of shaping the environment in which we live, our houses, but it's particularly good at anticipation and prediction. So AI, when it gets data about you, can anticipate what you're going to do. It can predict what you want, ranging from taking sensors that says you're 2 minutes from your front door, would you like us to unlock your door so you don't have to find your keys? For women, that's a huge thing, that you don't have to hunt around for keys in the dark. So you've got those sorts of predictions and anticipations. But if we take that further, we're also starting to see AI based on companionship rather than dialogue. So that when you talk to the AI, it will talk back to you, it will ask questions of you as well as you. So this is quite good in breaking down social isolation, because you can talk to it and it will start to pick up questions and themes in your conversations, and have that conversation with you. So for elderly people who are lonely or who are socially isolated, we've got that idea of a digital companion evolving who can also help you around the house.
And also there's the potential for the AI to alert friends and family if there's a problem quite easily, isn't there?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we've looked at and been looking at is the idea of being able to say, you seem upset, you seem depressed or not yourself. Would you like us to phone your brother so you can talk to him? Would you like us to call your doctor? So the AI can pick up from the tone, the nature and what's being said, and then suggest actions to help mitigate that. And I think that's quite interesting. And I can certainly see this idea where an Alexa type device with that companion is actually built into something like a robotic soft toy. So for somebody with Alzheimer's, somebody who's elderly, they have a toy in the shape of a dog or a cat who will talk to them and have conversations and actually help them have more control over their own lives.
How do you use AT within your organization or your life?
Well, as I said, I mean, the captions was probably the first big thing, switching on the captions on television. But there's some other types of AT or semi-AT that I use every day, and probably lots of other people do. Grammarly is a wonderful little product for improving productivity and writing. And I know many people with dyslexia who are using Grammarly to help them in terms of their production of print, of being accurate, fast and well laid out. But of course that's massively beneficial to somebody like me who has to produce reports and so on. And it speeds up making sure they're in good quality English and so on. So some things are bridging that gap. Whilst they've got particular uses for someone with a disability, Grammarly is a great example, which helps anybody who has to do reading and writing. So something like that, as I say, something like the captions, anything which is about access to information, really. And in my own home, I have my Amazon Echo set up. It controls everything from our lights to our heating, to our washing machine, to our dishwasher, much to my wife's anxiety. But yeah, everything is built around this hub. It's helped us to save money during the energy crisis, but it's also given us control over all sorts of devices.
Have you had a chance to use ChatGPT yet?
I have used ChatGPT. I found ChatGPT to be actually really interesting. I actually used it just recently because I went to ask it a series of questions around autism. And I was actually impressed by the quality of the answers that came back. So if I needed to write paragraphs, pieces of work, you could certainly ask some of those questions of ChatGPT and then edit it and refine it when it comes back. It's going to give you the information, but you still need to build that into your own style. You still need to think about how that links together to other information. So the chatbot, ChatGPT, is very, very good at producing short amounts of text that are really useful. The more advanced versions of ChatGPT are going to produce all sorts of things, but it brings us back to us as people thinking through what are the questions we want to answer. Do we actually recognise that the answers we're getting are accurate, are fair, and using our intellect to make those judgments as opposed to just trusting the AI all the time.
It'll help us improve our questioning, won't it, in the long run?
It should
because
do.
The better the questions, the better the answers you're going to get.
And also, there's other forms of AI which are interesting. I think some of the AI which is producing images from descriptions, that's quite interesting. So I had a look the other day, and I asked one of the things to produce me images of people with disabilities, and it produced some, and they were in wheelchairs. And then we began to refine it, and we said we wanted to see images of a man in a wheelchair in a forest in the snow, and it produced me an image to reflect this. Then I said, okay, create me an image of a woman flying above New York City in her wheelchair. And it produced me 6, 7 different images in different art styles, from manga to Klimt to Picasso or whatever I wanted. Now I think this is interesting because it allows us to produce collateral to raise the profile of disability. We can create lots of different artworks. But again, just like you were saying, it's our use of language, it's our questioning. We need to think about what is it we want to portray and how do we describe them. Now, if we can't describe it, how did we expect anybody to do it before AI? So this is beginning to help us really sharpen our thinking, sharpening our descriptions, being very clear on what we want for the future.
How do you spread the word about ATiA?
So every week I put out this newsletter thing, Access and Inclusion Through Technology. I've been doing that for about 6 years now, 7 years maybe. And every week it's got a roundup of stories of what's happening. But I think one of the really important things is to come to conferences, to listen to people's stories. Stories have got power. And I think capturing those stories and reusing them, retelling them in all sorts of different ways is one of the things that we should try to do much more of. And that includes we need to have far more capturing of images, of video, of stories, to pass on that message, to tell the story of why AT is important.
Has assistive technology impacted you personally, David?
In a funny way, it has. My brother has cerebral palsy. So I grew up with somebody who was originally using walking aids, mobility aids, then wheelchairs, power chairs, using computers, phones, and so on. So it's always been that idea of technology that enables somebody to do something. It's been quite a big part of my life. So watching Paul, you do all the different things he's done with his own technology, and all his complaints about the things that don't work well has been really quite illuminating for me for a very, very long time.
What are your thoughts on AT accommodations in the workplace?
I think that I think one of my big issues with AT accommodations has been that we don't spend enough time thinking about small and medium-sized businesses. One of the concerns that I have is that many of the case studies are excellent, but they're based around large corporations. Now we know that 70-80% of all employment is in the small and medium-sized sector. So unless we can really support that sector to make accommodations and employ people, we're always going to have a shortfall in terms of the number of jobs available. Not everybody can go and work for a corporate. But if you're a small business of maybe 6 or 7 people, then the CEO, the managing director, has to do everything pretty much. And so we may need to make it easy for them to make accommodations.
Are you seeing certain industries or sectors making huge progress in access to AT?
I would have to say not particularly any one sector. I think you see certain bursts of energy. So I think seeing things like some of the client-facing, the customer-facing technologies being put into stores and so on from different sectors. So that I think is quite interesting. The idea that you would put that technology where you would welcome people and introduce them into the store. I've seen quite a lot of being done, which is interesting in things like museums and culture. That seems to be quite a high-profile area where people are trying to provide information in accessible ways, but not just the information, but with the tools to interact with the information as well.
Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that one thing I think is always clear, disability pervades. Once you have a disability, that impacts on every aspect of your life. Technology also pervades. Technology doesn't really care whether you're using it for employment or school or just for fun or whatever. So I think one of the critical things for the future, and what I take away from ATiA, is this need to see the technology as pervading across all sectors of life and recording its success, its impact, not just on the specific reason why someone was given technology, but its impact across the whole life. Then we can really begin to understand the impact and the quality of what's been achieved through assistive technology.
David, thank you so much for your time today. You've been very generous to be here with us, and enjoy the rest of your time in Orlando.
I intend to. Thank you.